Good morning. My name is Professor Ulysses Simon History. You can call me Professor U.S. History for short. And your teacher has asked me here this morning to introduce you to your textbook that you'll be using for history this year. It's called History Alive. And we are up in the Sierra Mountains here, the beautiful Sierra Nevada, because your teacher wants you to see firsthand some of the elements that the Native Americans that you're going to be talking about in this chapter had at their disposal in order to survive. Now, you or I, if we were dropped off into this environment, take a look at how harsh that is. It would be very, very, very difficult for either one of us to survive here, because we wouldn't have all the things that we're used to. But the Native Americans were very adept. That means they were very good at using everything that was around them. Those trees, those plants, sometimes the very earth that they were walking on, they would use so that they could survive. And we call those the natural resources, because they're there naturally. They just exist. And they're resources because the people use them to their advantage. And as I said, many Native Americans were very good at using all their different natural resources to help them. So, because we're in California, there was a tribe around here called the Nisenan Indians. And the Nisenan Indians, there Maidu, there were some different ones in different regions, but we're going to be looking at the Maidu branch of the Nisenan Indians. And what they were able to do was come up with something. Here, let me grab one of these. That looks like a pretty good one. These Indians were very good at using something that came out of oak trees. And oak trees, as you may or may not know, oak trees produce acorns. And acorns can be used to eat. They're very nutritious. They don't taste very good. That's why nobody eats them today. Very few people. I don't know of anybody who does. They don't taste very good. This is not the season for oak trees to be dropping acorns, so I can't show you what any of them look like right now. I pity that, but maybe some other time your teacher can bring one in, or maybe you have an oak tree in your backyard and you can check one out. I don't suggest you bite into it. It's not very easy to do. It doesn't taste very good. So how did the Native Americans take those acorns and turn them into something that could provide them nutrition? Well, let me show you. All right. This place is protected, as you can see. There's a fence around it, but I've been given permission by the tribe to come in here to show you how they were able to use the acorns to get nutrition. It's protected because this is a historically significant site. Native Americans gathered here some time ago, a couple hundred years ago, probably was the last time they did it, to grind their acorns to use for food. And what you'll see here, that is a hole that they would take a rock. Let me see if I can show you this. Oh, you get to see the fence. That's not very good at all. All right, come down here. There we go. They would take a rock and keep pounding at the acorns over and over again into the bigger rock in the ground, and grind them into a fine powder, which they could then turn into kind of like flour. They'd make a dough out of it, and they were able to use that to make little breads that they could subsist on, and they'd keep them all year long, and they'd eat them all year long. So it was quite a big deal for these tribes to be able to grind their acorns like that, and to rely on them for food. In fact, take a look at how many there are over here. Look at that. Hole after hole after hole, and some of them, I've got to tell you, look how deep they are. It's way down in there. Isn't that incredible? The amazing thing is that these Native Americans spent so much time grinding acorns that they made these holes that deep. Now, we don't know if these holes belong to one family or one person. Most people believe they belong to one family, and that the women and daughters would come out here, grind those acorns over and over again, making that dough. It's just fascinating. Okay, here we are. Let's get out our textbooks, shall we? This is social studies. Your teacher likes to call it history. So get out your history books, please. Very good. And turn to page 4, and go ahead and tell me what you see on page 4 and 5. Well, I'm not your teacher here, so go ahead and call out the answer. What do you see on page 4 and 5? That's right, maps. This book is full of maps. And maps tell you a lot of different bits of information. Look at the bottom map on page 4, and can anybody tell me what the green represents on that map on the bottom of page 4? Very good. And that shows you that the Native Americans not only were able to use their natural resources for food, but they also certainly used them, much like we do today, for their clothing. However, they weren't able to have big manufacturing plants to take all the cotton that we use now, or the wool that we use now, and make all the different fabrics that you and I are wearing today. But they most often would take the skins off the animals' backs and use those. There were some tribes that were taking wool from sheep, and even a couple tribes taking some cotton and turning it into the beginning of fibers, which we now use today. So we've talked about how they've used them for clothing, they've used them for food, and believe me, they've also used them for shelter. They use their natural resources for shelter. Some of them built wood lodges, especially these Nisenan tribe in this area. They built wood almost like houses. Some were circular in shape, some were square in shape. They had cone roofs on them, very, very waterproof, able to stay cool during the summer, warm during the winter. They were able to adapt to their environment using their natural resources. So let's turn back to page 1 for a moment in our book. Who could tell me the title of the chapter? Brilliant. What you will see in this book, in every chapter, are little words written in blue. What do you call those? Excellent. I like to use the word key terms, and so does your teacher, so that you can refer to them very easily. And when you're taking Cornell notes, because sometimes you will in this book, you'll need to make sure you include those key terms. Because as you work with your groups to get together, and certainly when you're assessed on the chapters, you need to understand what those key terms are and how to use them in your discussions, all right? So certainly when you get into taking Cornell notes, use those key terms. You're going to see in this chapter key terms like natural resources and environment and things like that. Well, I'm in an environment today, and as you can see, the sun is coming up behind the camera. It's a beautiful morning. It's not too hot at all this time of the morning, and because it's late summer, it's not very cold either, and this is a great environment to be in. So without further ado, your teacher's going to tell you what to do next. This is Professor U.S. History signing off.